it was a high end drink. Maybe it was a Sazerac you wanted.
Okay, yeah.
And I was like, dude, this is not the place for you to be ordering a Sazerac. Like,
Well,
I don't have those things.
Watch and or listen while we tackle tough and sometimes taboo topics filmed live over drinks. This platform allows us to articulate our thoughts and challenge our beliefs. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
This is SipTalk, episode 275. My name is Justin DiGiulio, joined by James, the Bartender, Boswell, philosopher, philanderer, philanthropist, philatelist, phlebotomist, man full of phlegm. How's it hanging down there in sunny South Carolina?
Yo, we might be getting a hurricane next week, so I'm excited.
That's good news for you. That's good news for you. We've had some crazy weather this summer. Today's topic for Sip Talk is bar etiquette. Just want to get that topic out there before we shoot the shit too much and lose track of what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about how you behave when you're in a bar, the different circumstances you may encounter, and how to kind of smoothly deal with them, whether that's how to get the bartender's attention or splitting the tab or what drinks to order in what type of bar. We got you covered. Bars are some of my favorite places. James, how about you?
Not so much, because I don't know. I just don't like being out in public.
That's why you get to do Sip Talk podcast, where we can have a few drinks and shoot the shit.
Like last week I was in San Diego and just walking around, like most of the time I had headphones on. It's just like when I'm out in public, I'll still wear the headphones just so I can have my own space. It's
maybe a clinical issue, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
No,
the diagnosis is all but definite.
Well, in this day and age, perfectly healthy people are walking around with masks on 24/7 under their noses, which is like even sillier to me. Outside by themselves. So walking around with headphones, it is definitely not as weird of a thing as it may have been a while ago. How was your trip to sunny San Diego?
Dude, I want to live there. It's so much better than anywhere else in this country. And
I've read that grass is always greener. Is that true?
On the other side? Well, the grass in San Diego tends not to be quite as green because they don't get a lot of rain. But yeah. No, seriously, it's San Diego is like that kid in school that always aces every single test and always raises their hand when the teacher asks the class a question. San Diego is the kid that's always putting their hand up and always getting the right answer. It's like, just look at their weather forecast. It's obnoxious. It's like 78 and sunny every day, low of like 65, no rain.
Yeah, I've never been over there. I will tell you that I was just in Mexico and it was obnoxiously hot, like literally walking across the hotel.
Where in Mexico?
Playa del Carmen, south of Cancun. But it was a resort, and then it's a kind of big resort, and there's a pool area in the middle. But walking kind of from where our room was across the courtyard pool area to kind of like the dining and event area, I broke a sweat every single time, and by the time I got to the other side, I just felt disgusting. It was not. It was way too hot. I don't think I've ever existed in a climate that's just nice all the time. I don't know what I would do in that case.
Yeah, San Diego, it's just amazing. And where my brother lives in Ocean Beach, it's got a really cool feel for a community. It's kind of a little bit on the hippie-ish side, which can be obnoxious, but there's always people out doing things, and people are genuinely friendly. Like, I think Friday or Saturday night, I was walking around because I was just bored, and I was just walking like along the beach, and just ended up having like a 15-minute conversation with a random dude who said hi. Like, I was walking back from the grocery store one night and the dude was walking his dog, and I'm just kind of doing my own thing. And as I'm walking by, the dude just like puts his hand up and gives me a high five. Like, this is like, people are just cool here.
If that happened in New York, like, you'd be like, oh, this is obviously someone with a mental illness.
Yeah, but like it was just the dude like everybody in San Diego was happy. Why?
Because they're living in San Diego.
Right. And cycling there is fun.
Well, look, we got a topic we got to get to. The person is here to watch our episode. We don't want to let him or her down in today's episode. So let's Do you want? So you've been a bartender. I've never been a bartender.
Yeah.
I think I nail this pretty well, but I'll let you lead this. Uh,
So where are we starting off?
well, interacting with the bartender. How should you interact with the bartender?
I mean, generally, the bartender should be the one that's leading the interaction, because and by that I mean, like, the bartender's the one who's supposed to welcome you and ask you the questions to give you the good service. So you sit down at the bar. Like, let's assume you're sitting at the bar, right? It's not a super busy night. Like, it's the bartender's job to say, "Hey, how are you guys doing? What are you all up to tonight?" and give you a menu and ask you what you want. Like, and it's your job to just, like, know what kind of establishment you're walking into. And I think about, for example, I had a friend that was a bartender at Outback Steakhouse, right?
Okay,
Which, like, I'm not shitting on the establishment or anything about
it's a
that.
bar. It's a bar.
Yeah, but he told a story of having a guy sat down at his bar and ordered a blood and sand.
I've never heard of this drink. It does not
Um,
sound like a drink you should be ordering at this type of bar.
it's it
If I don't know the drink, it means it's not a very common drink. It's kind of that third or second or third
so I
string of
know
drink.
this drink, partially because it's part of a joke that I like to tell. But here are
Yeah,
the
I know that.
ingredients of a blood and sand.
All right, go ahead.
It's Scotch, sweet vermouth, Hearing cherry liqueur, orange juice. So one of those ingredients is super niche. The cherry liqueur you're not going
Yeah.
to find in many bars. Um, and so, like, my buddy who was bartending at Outback was like, "Dude, you're in the wrong place for this drink. Like, we're a chain restaurant bar. Like, we can make your basic stuff, but you're ordering something that, like, a craft cocktail bar would do. And even then, like, some craft cocktail bars might not have Hearing cherry liqueur. It's something that you got to be in the right place for it. And, like, when I was bartending at the sushi restaurant, like, I had somebody order, I can't remember what it was, um, not a Negroni, but like a similar style drink. It was a drink that required absinthe. I can't remember the name.
Oh, okay, so that's definitely not a Negroni.
No, no, but I'm saying it's, like, in the same family of drinks.
Yeah, which I would call like second string cocktails.
Yeah, but it was a high end drink. Maybe it was a Sazerac you wanted,
Okay, yeah.
and I was like, "Dude, this is not the place for you to be ordering a Sazerac. Like,
Well,
I don't have those things."
we've got what type of drinks to order and what type of bars coming up. What I was thinking on this topic was
Yeah, it was a Sazerac.
was more so like having conversations with a bartender. Like, the bartender needs to, there's a lot of people that want to come in and sit down with a bartender and like have a conversation, but you got to understand, like, the bartender is going to be nice to you because it's his job and you're tipping him, so his
Yeah.
income depends on it. But he has other things to do, whether it's prepping the bar, cleaning the bar, making drinks, servicing other customers, cleaning, making drinks for the rest of the restaurant, depending on the establishment. You know, a lot of times the bartender isn't just serving the bar, but also making the drinks for everybody at the tables in the restaurant.
That was absolutely my job. Is, like, I was making server drinks. I was taking care of everybody that was sitting at my bar, and I was also making every cocktail for every table at the bar, at the restaurant.
So, and the thing is, bartenders are busy. So, have you ever had somebody like snap their fingers?
It did not happen very often.
So it's snapping fingers or shouting, or even. And I always thought this was a good thing because it showed that you were ready to just make the transaction. Holding money out in your hand on the bar are all negatives. In my experience, the best way to get a bartender's attention is that while you are sitting waiting to get the bartender's attention, that you just kind of look at the bartender and wait for him or her to make eye contact with you. Then you get some acknowledgement, and when the bartender's ready, they know that you're ready to make a drink because you're
The
aware.
other thing that you can do is, if you're standing at the bar, is just subtly lean a little bit more forward than everybody else.
Well, but you have to be ready. So if that bartender looks at you and you're looking away, you're not.
Oh yeah, no, you have to be.
But
Like,
the lean in, I agree with you. The lean in definitely, without, you're not leaning over the bar.
No. But if everybody else is standing at, like, let's say 90 degrees to the bar, you're standing at like 100.
So, and then I thought we had more on tipping in a different part of this, but I would say the minimum to tip on any drink is $1.
Yeah, $1 per drink. It depends on how involved the drink is. Like if they're just like cracking open a beer for you or pouring a draft, like that's $1. But like if you're asking them to make a drink where they're smoking the glass and they're muddling ingredients and stuff, like
And that's a 20% tip, which is probably going to be like $3 to $5, depending on
yeah,
whether you're at like a $14 to $20.
yeah. If there's a lot of work that goes into making the drink, then you should be tipping higher.
Yeah, I
When it comes
wonder.
to talking with the bartender, what I would say is go off of the energy that the bartender's giving you. If they're super busy, don't expect a conversation. If it's a quiet night at the bar and the bartender says some things to you and you want to talk, then go ahead and have the conversation. Most bartenders are going to be talkative because that's part of the job that they enjoy is interacting with people.
I would also say, kind of moving on is interacting with other people who are at the bar. A lot of time you'll be at the bar by yourself, or even if you're with somebody else, you're around other people. And I think that kind of social acuity in knowing when somebody is open to that conversation, whether it is the bartender or it's another patron, is really, really important. Watching their body language. Like if a bartender is like answering your question, but his feet and body are pointed in the other direction, he's not interested in having a conversation. And same thing goes for another patron. If you ask a question or you ask something that's quasi open ended, and that person doesn't really turn and give you the time of day. This is not somebody who wants to mingle and have a conversation with you.
I'll tell you one thing that I enjoyed doing as a bartender was getting people that were sitting at my bar to interact with each other when they might not have otherwise. I'm not talking about forcing it, but like if there was a conversation that was happening, like bringing somebody else into it, and like
That's an art.
yeah,
Probably an art that you enjoy because you may not have wanted to be hosting the conversation.
well, yeah, there would be some times where I'd have to pawn off a conversation, but like, and a lot of times it would be if like I had like some regulars or people not if not regulars, and people that I had seen at least 2 or 3 times, and like if there was a conversation happening, knowing my crowd and knowing who I could introduce to who.
Yeah, and that is a sign of a good bartender that you have this kind of social awareness as the bartender. But a bartender's skills in this field generally are much more honed than the average bar patron.
Well, as a bartender, you have to be paying attention to the mood of the people at your bar because one, it's going to get you better tips. It's going to make a better experience for everybody sitting at your bar. But two, and I would say more importantly, it helps you avoid problems.
Give me an example.
Um, Making sure that people aren't overserved, making sure that like interactions between people at the bar stay positive, making sure that like the level of service that you're providing to people is on point. Like if you, I think about this when I worked in hotels, where like we'd have guests that would check out, and we'd always ask them how their stay was, and like if they ever brought up a complaint, like we'd be like, "Why didn't you tell us about this when
When
you
it
checked
happens.
in or like the first day? Like we would have been able to do something about it. You're
Yeah.
leaving now. We can't like we want to make you happy and make things right, but you didn't tell us about this for 4 days." And so it's the same thing when you're working at a bar is like monitoring people's experiences to make sure that like, hey, if there is a problem, let me see what I can do so that you have a good time while you're here.
Um. So a little more on just conversations with the bartender because I caught up with a few more of my notes, but just also it depends. Like the easiest gauge is just looking at how packed the bar is. You
Yeah.
don't even have to read body language. If there are other
Nope.
people there that obviously need drinks, or just like
Or
depending on
not
how many
even
other
like or just watch the way that bartenders are moving. Are they moving fast or are they moving like or do they look relaxed?
yeah, it's
Because sometimes a bar might not look busy, but the bartender is busy.
yeah because he's servicing the whole restaurant, like we were talking about a second ago.
Yeah.
Let's talk about types of bars, maybe, so we can reference these down the line. So let's lead with dive bars. Dive bar would be like your neighborhood hole in the wall. You're getting, you might get like $4 beers. They might even have some specials that are like $1 beer night.
Yeah.
Uh,
Generally, the amenities are not going to be great. The drinks are going to be cheap. The food options are going to be limited.
your basic bar food, which is like hamburgers, chicken tenders, what's other French fries, calamari if you're lucky, nachos.
Yeah, like basic fried food.
Yeah,
Wings.
if you can't if you can't get it at a ball game, you're probably not getting it at this place.
Yeah.
So and the thing about a dive bar is you can get a beer. You can get a two what's the word for a two
Highball.
a highball, which is basically a 2 ingredient drink, which would be like a rum and coke, a gin and tonic. Depending on the dive bar, only because these drinks are kind of leaving the obscurity, potentially a three ingredient drink, but it's got to be a very simple, like, I would say a Negroni would be about as far out as I would go, and I would not expect the bartender to know how to make it. So that would be like, you'd have to really know.
No, I would expect the bartender to be able to make it, but they're not going to have great ingredients because it's a dive bar. They're not spending money on top shelf liquor. They're not spending money on.
The thing is about most bartenders at dive bars, these guys aren't getting into it for love of the craft. And some of them will love being bartenders.
I've seen some dive bar bartenders that have great knowledge, and they're happy.
So have I. But that's why it's a little tricky. So I probably, anything that really needs to be like shaken or is going to have a froth or there's any complexity. That's why I said I would probably go out to like a Negroni and anything equal.
Also, anything that needs like fresh ingredients. So, for example, a mojito.
Yeah, you're not getting a mojito at a dive bar.
Not a good one.
No, but it's. And you can order these drinks at dive bars that you're going to piss off the bartender.
You sure are.
And you're not going to get a high quality drink. So, and like I would say, okay, so like a Negroni, which is 3 ingredients. Gin.
None of those are fresh.
Yeah, exactly. Gin, sweet vermouth, and Campari. A margarita, right? Which is tequila and lime juice and simple syrup, or they may have it full batch.
No, you should not be putting simple syrup in a margarita.
Well, but you're going to get simple syrup in a margarita probably if you're in a dive bar. Maybe. I'm trying to think of a way to make it 3. So that's dive bars. I think maybe.
Here's a good example of a dive bar drink that's acceptable. That's 3 ingredients. Cosmo.
What's in a Cosmo?
Cosmopolitan.
Is it cranberry,
cranberry,
vodka, and
triple
lemon juice?
Yeah, triple and lemon.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. So
you order a Cosmo at a dive bar, you're fine.
Well, it made
it's gonna be served in a plastic cup.
Yeah, exactly. So then I would probably say like an Irish pub is going to be very equivalent to a dive bar, and I don't mean like an authentic Irish pub. I just mean like in New York City, like also known as a dive bar, but everybody that works there is Irish. Like
I'd say they're like a half step up from a dive bar.
It's just it's like a themed dive bar.
Pretty much, yeah.
And there are some really nice. The one thing I love about Irish pubs is like around the holidays they deck those places out with like just crazy.
Well, they're gonna have an Irish pub's gonna have a little bit better selection of alcohol than a dive bar because a dive bar is a place that you're going to like have. The appeal of a dive bar is cheap booze.
Well, and you're also going, if it's an Irish place, you're definitely going to get some imported beers,
right?
Outside of like Budweiser, Michelob, and Miller. You're going to be able, Guinness is obviously going to be flowing. There'll probably be a better Scotch and whiskey selection than a standard dive bar, but not by much.
That's why I say it gets like a half step up from a dive bar. It's going to have a slightly better selection in certain areas.
So from there, I would say next up is like a sports bar.
I consider sports bars to just be more expensive dive bars.
Yeah, there's more TVs, and it's probably going to be a little bit cleaner than a dive bar.
But I would say the quality of food and drink at a sports bar is either equal to or sometimes less than dive bars.
Well, I mean, again, I define dive bar food as like a baseball stadium food. Same thing with a sports bar.
Except you're paying more for it than you would at a dive bar. I don't like sports bars.
I'm not a big sports fan. So like, and you don't tend to watch a lot of like tennis at a sports bar. It's usually like football, basketball. And then I would say also kind of on the same level would be like an Outback Steakhouse bar, an Applebee's or a Chili's or a Houlihan's or a Friday.
Yeah, like any chain restaurant bar.
Now, some of these places are going to have at this level, a lot of these guys are going to have their own kind of pre-made, super sugary hurricane style cocktails. So they'll have their unique cocktails, but still, I wouldn't go and order a Sazerac at an Applebee's.
Well, you know what I'm going to say is that I would say your average dive bar bartender has more knowledge than your average bartender at, say, a TGI Fridays. Because the thing is, like, in order to get a job at a dive bar, you have to prove yourself. Whereas like all these corporate jobs, these bartenders, they just go through like the corporate training. You don't have to know anything about bartending to get a job as a bartender at like a chain restaurant, because they've got books and kind of just like
I'll give you an equivalent when it comes to being the chef at one of these chain restaurants. If you're the chef at a Fridays, you don't really do much cooking. You just kind of take things from the freezer and microwave them.
Right. And it's like
you're not cooking
everything
anything.
is supplied to you by corporate. It's all prepackaged.
Yeah,
So,
because they have to have brand consistency, which just means kind of really lousy.
Right.
Really
And so if you're the
food.
chef at a Fridays, like your job is managing people and making sure that workers show up on time and stuff like that. But when it comes to like crafting a menu or having like strong food knowledge, you don't really need to have that because somebody else is doing that for you at corporate. And it's the same idea with like being a bartender is you don't need like, because I worked at a bar that was very corporate. I had two jobs. One was the sushi restaurant, which was independent. I liked that job. And for a short while, I had a job at a bar as a bartender at Cinnabar in Mount Pleasant. And that was
which
very
is a movie theater bar.
And it was basically a service bar because like 90% of my business was making drinks for the servers and not serving people at my bar. But like of the 6 or 7 bartenders that I worked with, I would say like 1.5 of them had bar knowledge.
Yeah, I mean that's an environment. All right, so let's take it a step up from the bare minimum.
I would say like you're like mid to high end restaurant. Well, your mid tier restaurant bar.
So, what would be a mid tier restaurant? I don't know.
I mean, like, because I'm thinking a high tier restaurant would be like a nice steakhouse.
A nice steakhouse or something, and they should have a pretty good knowledge of how to make some decent drinks. But I would say even like a steakhouse, they may not know how to make, like a paper plane or a Sazerac or a French 76 or something like that.
Also, and this is something that I've tested with a number of bartenders, and I think I've asked you this. So the question I asked somebody to determine how much they know about bartending in one question is
your French 76.
No.
What?
Make me a classic daiquiri.
Oh yeah, and which is not like your frozen daiquiri. And what's in a classic daiquiri? I don't drink that.
It's just rum, lime juice, and sugar, shaken with ice, and then served up.
All right, let's because we had a lot to cover here.
I've gone to like high end restaurants where the bartenders have failed that question. I've gone to low end restaurants where the bartenders have passed that question. I was golfing with a bartender at Hall's Chop House, which is one of the nicest restaurants in Charleston. And I asked him that question. I said, all right, dude, imagine you're on a first date with a chick and you're at like a nice restaurant and you're trying to determine whether the bartender knows their stuff and whether you're going to order some nice drinks with her or you're just going to stick to like beer and wine. And I was like, what's the one question you ask? And he thinks for a second. He's like, I just asked the bartender to make me a daiquiri, and I fucking jumped because that person had more bar knowledge than me, but his question was the exact same.
All right. Let's okay. So now let's say you've got cocktail bars. Okay, a cocktail bar is going to be a bar that really now these bartenders are going to really truly specialize in one, knowing the book of drinks. And then 2, being experimentologists, meaning they like to create drinks and they like to infuse and they like to
I'll say
play
that
jazz.
There are various flavors of cocktail bars.
Well, and that's I was going to get to hotel bar and like rooftop bars in a second. So that's I kind of went to
about just cocktail bars.
Cocktail bars, exactly.
Because you're going to have some cocktail bars where like each bartender individually is very well trained and comes in with their own bank of knowledge, and each bartender participates in the things like making the syrups and making the juices and making the premixes. And then you'll have other cocktail bars where it might be like one dude who knows what he's doing and then a bunch of other people that just follow a book.
Yeah, and there's one person who's really like creating the menu. Everybody else is just kind of trained in make the menu. But yeah, cocktail bars also range. There's one out near me in New Jersey that is, I would say, like a lower end cocktail bar, but super knowledgeable staff. You and I have been there, I think, a couple of times actually. And these guys are super passionate about it.
Is that the one? Yeah, that town near you.
in a little
You
main.
and Scott went there at least once.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yep,
and I
I
mean,
like that place.
super passionate, great drinks, not super expensive, not high end. And then some other, like if you go to Death and Company or there's a whole bunch in
Like employees
Manhattan.
only.
Yeah, these guys are going to be much more exclusive. It's going to be difficult to get in, right? Like some of these are actual true speakeasies, which part of the vibe. Speakeasies are almost always cocktail bars. There's a kind of hidden secret element of getting in and knowing about it. But then speakeasy is like the real where cocktail culture really started in the United States. So speakeasies are almost exclusively cocktail bars. Uh, and again, and what we're kind of getting into is like how complex you can order the drink. So you got to use your own bit of judgment, but generally the nicer the place, the more complex of a drink you can ask for, the more expensive the drinks are going to be, and the higher you need to tip per drink.
But if you're going to like a real high end cocktail bar, you're going to be dealing with people that have studied all of this for years. They've trained for a long time. A lot of the ingredients are made in house, and you are, I wouldn't say you're encouraged to, but like ordering off menu at a place like these is totally fine because the staff should be equipped to handle it as long as you're not asking for like a completely esoteric ingredient.
Yeah, and drinks that take lots and lots of time, right? Like the thing is, these guys are passionate about making drinks. They have respect for somebody who likes drinks because they know that their art is appreciated when it's served. But just don't be a dick and just ask for, and if you are going to ask for something crazy obscure, say, look, this is a bit of a reach. There's a million other drinks I'd love to have. I just wanted to throw this one out there.
Well,
if you don't want to do that, like suggest an alternative. I'm open to anything. You got to be.
I did that exact thing when I was in Bilbao 2 years ago. I went to my favorite bar of the entire world, and I asked the bartender. I was like, "Hey, I don't know if you can make this or not. No big deal if you can't, but can you make the Clover Club cocktail?" He's, "Oh yeah, I know that one." I was like, "Really?" Like, and so not only did he know it, but they had the ingredients. But that's because
is this the Sir Winston Churchill?
It sure is.
To give him a little plug.
Yeah, Sir Winston Churchill pub in Bilbao, Spain, is the best bar in the world.
I haven't been there. All right, let's just hit a couple more types of bars real quick so we can move on to the next one. Cocktail bars, wine bars, which is like you might get some wine bars that have some okay cocktails, but you're there for the wine. Hotel bars tend to be super swanky, not always the best knowledge of drinks, but they are usually they're usually pretty good with cocktails and they're nice places. So
it very much depends. When I was a bartender, the bar right next to my restaurant was a hotel bar, and the head bartender there would come into my restaurant from time to time, and because his bar would sometimes hook us up with supplies when we ran out of something, he ate for free whenever he came in. And so I'd have like an hour to an hour and a half to talk with him, and like that dude knew his stuff.
And again, hotel bars is kind of one of the last ones on my list because it is more expensive. And the thing about hotel bars also, they tend to be pretty expensive. People on vacation spend money because they're just prepared to. I don't know what it is.
Hotel bars, you have a complete range of experience. You could have hotel bars that are just a step above a TGI Fridays, or you could have some hotel bars that are on par with some of the best cocktail bars in the world.
All right. Or you could just have a hotel mini bar where you got to make the drinks in your room. All right. So let's just move on to navigating crowds and personal space. The thing is, bars can be crowded. You've really got to be careful with being on top of other people, especially in New York City. Trying to get to the bar oftentimes is very difficult, where you literally have to like be watching the bar, seeing who has a credit card slip or check in front of them. You see if people are almost finished. You got to like really pay attention to see like where you can slip in, stand behind these people.
Well, generally, if it's super crowded, there will be like one space that kind of rotates through where people have made space for orders to get in and get out at the bar. So you just have to figure out where the motion is at the bar and kind of where that like chink in the armor is.
Well, where that happens the most, and we didn't even mention this on our types of bar list here, lounges where like there's not even chairs at the bar. It's just kind of this ebb and flow wave of people ordering drinks and then going back to their friends, ordering drinks and going to the dance.
Oh yeah, and we haven't talked about like clubs or anything like that.
And at a lounge, you're either getting like their pre-made cocktails or you're getting a beer or a 2-ingredient drink. But like if you're ordering a 3-ingredient drink or more, you are an asshole there's 500 people trying to get a drink.
Oh yeah. Like you're
So like just keep it moving.
if you're at a cocktail bar and it's really busy, like ordering a complicated drink is okay because that's what's expected, and like the bartenders
Exactly.
know that their drinks orders are all going to be complicated because that's what their menu is. But if you're at anything lower than a cocktail bar and it's really really busy, your order should be beer, wine, or a highball.
Now, what we didn't mention also is your order needs to be prepared before you interact with the bartender, with the slight exception of maybe a cocktail bar where there can be some conversation because it is the art and you're there to like really kind of talk about it and enjoy it and appreciate it. But at any bar where it's densely packed, or even
Think about it like
packed.
fast food. If you're in line and if it's 8 people deep in the line in fast food, by the time you get to the register, you should have your order ready.
But even if you're going through the drive-through McDonald's and you're the only one there, there's a chance somebody's coming right behind you. But like, you're not there to have a conversation about like where they source their potatoes. Okay, it's
No.
just you order what's on the menu. You can delete the onions, you can delete the pickles, but like let's get through this. All right, so just in a busy bar, you want to be aware of personal space. You want to have your eye on the bar to know when you can get in. You want to have your drinks ready. You got to be really careful of spilling, because that can really piss people off, especially you spill across the bar. If you're trying to carry multiple drinks, you spill in somebody's shoes. And then, by the way, if it is a busy bar and it took you a while to get those drinks and you spill a drink, you're back of the line pretty much. You'd have to have a really nice guy bartender to be like, oh, let me refresh that real quick. And
I mean,
then
it
just
depends
kind
on
of
how bad the spill is.
walking through also, like you want to keep your elbows down. Like elbows are the biggest offender in places like this. We talked about what to order at what types of bars. Handling awkward situations and upset people. When I was in, you and I haven't even talked in a while, but when I was in Mexico last week, there was a couple instances where there were some people that like you could tell that these guys don't handle their liquor very well. The drinks, is all inclusive, which I'm generally not a fan of. This was actually, I was very impressed with like 60 to 70% of what was being served, food and drink wise. But then of course that 30 to 40% was just kind of like your chicken tender hot dog, crappy margarita type drink. But they had a lot of really good stuff. But point is, there's a handful of times where there's two different dudes in particular that started like yelling and getting in fights and just shouting. And you could tell, and it happened a couple of times with this one dude, you could tell that it was just like these guys got drunk and these are like wife beater type dudes,
Yeah, you see that a lot in the South. I'll tell you that.
Well, and that's the thing is like you got to be able to understand how to handle these awkward situations and avoid them, at all costs, and to diffuse them if you're involved in them.
You know what my number one tip would be? Is try and make the bartender aware.
Or it is like a lounge or something like that. Maybe the bouncers or something.
Yeah,
again,
it's
not to interact and not to bring it up.
right, but like because bartenders don't want trouble in their restaurant. Nobody does. And so if you can get a bartender, if just side eye the bartender and make sure that they see what's going on, because like when I go out now that I'm no longer a bartender, I'm on the other side of the bar. Like I try and have a good relationship with like the places that I'm a regular at, which is basically just the pool hall. But like I make sure to say hi to the staff. I make sure to know that like they know that I don't cause trouble. So that way, if there's ever trouble around me, they're immediately going to assume that I am not the cause.
And because they know your character,
Right.
but and also I don't think we have much about being a regular somewhere, but
no, but it's if you can make that impression early of I'm not here to cause trouble, then if trouble happens, you're going to have the people that you want on your side.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so
when it comes to de-escalating things, because I've seen plenty of times where things go badly at bars for people, and probably the best and easiest thing to do is just keep your mouth shut and walk away.
All right, I got
anything more than that.
No, the thing is, at a bar, when there's any potential issues, you need to understand you're just dealing with people who are not, in most cases, because it's already gotten to this point, these people are generally not rational. Right? Like, small issues become gigantic issues, easy to start fights. People are not on their best behavior. They're impulsive. Like you got to get away from the situation or try to diffuse the situation. Never escalate the situation because almost always the other person's not going to respond reasonably. Like, um, next up, I got bar date etiquette because a bar, in my opinion, is probably the ideal place for a first date. Like a movie is not a good place because you can't
No, terrible.
and get to know the other person. Coffee is, to me, just always feels a bit like contrived. It's a little bit weird. Like I don't go and sit in coffee shops normally. I mean, maybe some like
Well,
bookworms do. So
no, but what you're going back to is just a kind of a foundational advice of dating, which is,
neutral territory.
well,
And
neutral territory, but also don't do something on a first date that you wouldn't normally do on your own. So, like, would you go to a coffee shop and hang out for an hour on your own? No. Would you
but
go
I
to a
would say,
bar and hang out for an
yeah,
hour on your own? Yeah. All right. So then, bar is what it is. If you're the coffee shop kind of person, then a coffee date makes a lot more sense.
yeah. Oh, and I would say like a coffee date might be second to a bar. But even
Coffee
people,
date's not a bad idea. It's just like you have to make sure that you pick your first date idea somewhere within the realm of things that you would find enjoyable if you weren't on a date.
yeah, I completely agree. And the one I think kind of the big benefit that bars have, and this is where it can get a little tricky, is the social lubrication that alcohol does provide. However, that's where it can get a little tricky because you can end up having too much, and
Well, you should never be getting drunk on a first
on a
date.
first date, yeah, or really any date. And you should also never be getting really belligerently drunk. Uh, but by
No,
the
but
way,
like
I will say, before this episode, you went for a how many mile bike ride?
14 and change.
Damn, I just did a couple mile run, but I just realized I didn't drink any water.
Oh no, I had a bunch of water and a protein shake afterwards, and like 14's like a light ride for me, but it was all intervals, so it was intense.
I think, but also knowing, and it's like hitting me now. I'm like, all right, wait a second, I need to pay attention to how much I'm drinking because you have to know how much you can drink. For general safety, which we're going to get to in a second, but also just like if you're there to interact with somebody else, you've got to be. You don't want to overdo it.
I would say one drink per hour.
Yeah, I'd second that. And you could push it a little bit, but I would not go
I
much
I
more than
wouldn't
that.
on a first date. One drink per hour, hard limit.
And because it becomes difficult to read social cues from the other party as well. Which is kind of the goal of a date is to watch and get to know the other person. And it's difficult to do when you're inebriated. So, and you also want them to feel safe.
Yeah.
Without them being drunk and blindly feeling safe. And so let's talk about safety. Because I think in a bar environment is when a lot of bad shit happens. I was at an event last night where there were some drinks being served, and I was with a group of 6 or 7 agents who work for me. But one of the newer agents, who's a younger girl, handed me a drink, and I literally like held it away from my body, like I held it at a distance because I was like, I don't know, I just don't want. It feels weird to me, like for to be holding somebody else's drink. I think the the fear of somebody slipping something in your drink needs to be something that's always kind of front of mind, not like just always being worried about getting roofied, but like you just always need to keep your eye on your own drink. Does that make
I would
sense?
agree. It's a big problem in Charleston.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen somebody being roofied, but I was telling a story last night about how my friend Adam, who and I went to Florida, and we were at this bar, and I could probably have 8 drinks, and like you'd be like, oh, Justin, you can tell like he's a little happier than normal, but I wouldn't be like on the floor. So this is a point in the night where we'd had like 3 drinks. I went and I left my drink on the bar at the bar, and I went and took a phone call for like 12 minutes. Came back to the bar. The bartender got everybody shots. And then I was like, all right, we're headed to the next place. And, that was like maybe 10 minutes after the shot. So I finished my drink and had the shot. And when I got up to walk away, I felt like I was wearing those beer goggles that they give you in like 8th grade health class. And they're like, this is what happens when you drink. And like, you literally can't walk straight. That's how I felt. And that was like 4, maybe 5 max drinks in. And I was like really freaked out. And it didn't hit me until like the next day, or maybe like even later that night, that like, I think that the bartender, because there's nobody else on our side of the bar, slipped some in my drink.
It's less common for bartenders to be putting stuff in people's drinks. That's really rare. It's much more common for somebody else at the bar to be trying to slip something into a drink. And it's not exclusive to women, but women are more often the victims of this than men.
Very true. Well, and that's what I was like, at that point in time at this bar, I was in pretty good shape and pretty muscular. I weighed, at least like 220, 225. Like, what was this guy's plan? And it was a male gay bartender. So I can't imagine.
It doesn't, like, if you're unconscious, it doesn't matter how much you weigh. You're not putting up a fight.
I'm not going to pass out on the bar floor, but like, what was this guy's ultimate plan? But if you're a 110-pound female, you have a lot more to be worried about. Just my thinking. Females need to be a little more careful of that, but everybody should just always keep an eye on your drink. Another thing is,
I would say just take your drink everywhere you go.
Unless, of course, you go out for a cigarette and you must leave your drink at the bar. And then what you're supposed to do in this scenario is put a napkin or a clean coaster, those little cardboard coasters. You don't want to take one that's been sat on the bar because you're going to put it on the top of your drink, which is not the safest thing to do, but that's kind of actually etiquette for going to have a cigarette, saying, I'll be returning here in less than 3 minutes. But you're not going to, if it's more than 3 minutes, you don't get to keep your spot. Like, sorry.
No, but I would say if you're planning on, like, if you can't take your drink with you and you're planning on being away for more than a couple minutes, just finish your drink.
Yeah, I mean, they're not. You're talking about anywhere from like 3 ounces to 12 ounces. Like, you could just knock it down and then just wait a little while before you order the next one. But
have a water to keep yourself going or something. But just don't leave a drink unattended because, the napkin or the coaster. I just think that is so easily circumvented by somebody who really wants to.
No, but my point is, it just says I'll be back. And
but I don't think that really gives you any security that, like, when you come back, that your drink hasn't been tampered with.
No, I'm giving contradictory advice here, but I'm just saying, in terms of like traditional etiquette, that's what you're supposed to do. Also, in terms of safety, if you do plan to have, too many drinks, you need to have a clear path home. Whether it's an Uber or a designated driver, or you're taking public transportation. And on top of you finding your own way home, if you're out with other people, you want to know how these people are getting home as well, because you are ultimately responsible for your friends.
Yeah.
I just think, like, in terms of safety and responsibility, you need to, if you have a friend who's really drunk, taking their keys is a dick thing to do, but it's the right thing to do.
You would rather them be mad at you the next day than them waking up in jail.
Yeah, I mean, I used to frequent a lot of bars, and there were nights where, like, all right, Justin, if you're going to have one more, we're taking your motorcycle helmet and keys. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I guess you guys are better judge than I am. But I also lived in the neighborhood, so. Yeah,
and I've got a buddy that I play pool with that a couple times he's been over, and he's had too much to drink. And I'm like, dude, you're sleeping here tonight. There's a guest room. Like, you're not driving home. I don't want to have to deal with the Dewey on your part.
So it's the right thing to do. And like, if you sleep in somebody's sofa or guest room, not a big deal. Like,
no,
probably
really
if you drank that much, you're probably not waking up the next day feeling super refreshed. So, like, just take the L.
If you're out at a bar with a bunch of people, like, if you need to, like, bring them home with you in your Uber and they sleep on your couch or something, that's still better than, like, them going on their own, and especially if you know that they're in worse shape than you are.
I'm going to skip a little bit ahead into understanding certain boundaries. I have, because I have been a regular at a lot of different bars. I hear a lot of stories from female bartenders where, like, guys are just hitting on them nonstop.
Yep.
And this is, we got into this a little bit earlier when we were talking about, like, how much you should talk to the bartender. We didn't group this into that because I thought it needed its own section, but a lot of men don't receive kindness from random strange ladies. When you have a female bartender, just because she's being nice to you doesn't mean she's hitting on you.
Don't hit on the help. I've just said that. I've got one friend in particular that I've had to say that to. I don't know how many times. He's like, "Oh, the bartender's really cute." Don't hit on the help. Like, it's just not going to go your way. They're paid to be nice to you.
They're paid to be nice to you, and by you, you're the one paying.
Yes,
because they're not making much on an hourly basis. So
no,
it would be on them to be the one to initiate or indicate that they're interested in you.
If they're interested in you, they'll let you know.
Yeah, exactly. So
And that doesn't mean that you can't crack a joke or be funny, but like there's a difference between that and like hitting on them.
So I want to announce, though, that this week's bar trivia question, the bar trivia is on vacation. So there will not be a new bar trivia question on episode 275, but I will give you the answer to episode 274's bar trivia question. And that was, what is at the beginning of eternity, the end of time, the beginning of every end, and the end of every place? What's the beginning of every eternity, end of the time, end of time, sorry, the beginning of every end, the end of every place? And the answer is
Brought to you by the letter E.
brought to you by the letter E. E is at the beginning of eternity, end of time, beginning of every end, and the end of every place. E is the answer. And you know, when you do enough of these trivia questions, you realize like there's a kind of a standard rubric for making a lot of these, and they fall into certain camps. And as soon as I mentioned this one last episode, you're like, I got it. Which is funny because the way that you answered that last episode, you ran one by me, and you got about like 6 words into the riddle, and I
Because
gave
you'd already heard it.
Yeah, well, because I hadn't heard that one, but I knew the recipe for it.
Yeah.
So there's a cool thing about, you know, like understanding the trivia, and these are generally,
I would
I
call
think
that one a literal one. It's just you have to take it super literally.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I would say that most of our bar trivia is like medium to hard, not in hard, but like if this was your stovetop and it was like a 1 out of 10, I'd call it like medium high, so like a 7. Most of these are like 6s to 5s to 8s. I think none of these are like actual Mensa.
I mean, I would give that last one like a 3 or a 2.
Yeah, this one's, but because it's a very commonly used rubric for a brain teaser. But anyways, if you want to answer the bar trivia, you want to win some merch, some pint glasses, coffee mugs. It's still summertime. We got the SipTalk beach towel, t-shirts. There's some cool stuff on there. Visit SipTalkPodcast.com. Answer the bar trivia question. On SipTalkPodcast.com, you can buy us a drink. You buy us a bottle. You can buy our bar tab. And on that note, I want to bring up the idea of when you're at the bar, you have the option to pay as you go or to pay at the end. My preference, because I don't count alcohol calories or dollars, is to not actually have any idea how much I'm spending, not stress about it, and just pay at the end without looking at the bill. Which reminds me, I have a really funny story that happened to me last night. What's your? I feel like just knowing you that you were a pay as you go guy.
It depends.
And true, it does depend on the venue also. Yeah.
Like if let's say I'm out on like a first date and I'm in an area where there's a number of bars that are all next to each other. Like one of my go-tos is like get one drink at one bar, go to the next, and like hit 3 or 4 places in one night over a couple hours. In which case, I'll be doing pay as I go, so that way, like we just order the drinks, pay for them, have our drinks, and then we can just leave without interruption.
Exactly. Yeah, without having to wait for the tab, interrupt the bartender. Like, you know, if you're getting an $8 drink, you drop a 10, you move on. But you have to. I think you need to be. It's best if you're paying in cash.
Right.
Best and you know, if you know you're just gonna have one drink and leave, you're like, all right, I'm just grabbing one drink, so you just close me up on the card. That's okay. But then if you then order another drink and you're paying with a card, you're like, it's a hassle for the bartender.
No. It's if I'm paying with a card, then I'm opening up a tab and like I'm expecting to be there for a little while. If I'm only getting one drink, I'm almost always paying with cash.
So yeah, I like opening a tab.
Let's talk about like if you're out with a group, like you need to decide how bills are being split up beforehand.
You know, I'm really bad at this because, well, one, I tend to order more expensive stuff or just order more stuff, but I almost always pay more than my fair share. There's nothing more frustrating for me when the $200 bill comes and there's 3 people and I'm offering to just overpay whatever, but then I've got somebody who like wants to look at the bill and is breaking everything down. I'm like, dude, I'm already overpaying, so like you're good. You pay your like we've solved this. It's a win for you. Like, why are you arguing to make it less of a win? I actually went out to lunch today with an agent, and we both tried to like jockey for the position of who was paying, and ultimately he paid. But like he asked the guy to get the tab because I wasn't looking at the bartender in that moment. And then like he had his card out, but I was closer to the bartender and I threw mine out there, but the bartender's hand went to his hand. I was so mad. But you know, if you're really out there on a budget, you want to make it clear. You probably want to ask up front and be like, hey guys, just heads up, I'm only going to get this stuff. I'm not splitting this equally. Like I'm in for my $40 or whatever. But in many cases, it might be like, all right, well, let me know what my share is, and I'll just Venmo you, right? I don't know. There's nothing. I just really hate this kind of, I don't know, just being super cheap over the bill. And if you're not in a position where you can like afford, when you have to be cheap, like make it very clear ahead of time. Like, hey guys, like I'm only in for this. Just make it very clear. But don't bring everybody down from having a good time to now like doing hard math, which by the way is actually simple math, but after a few drinks, it's a little bit hard. So here's what happened to me last Sunday coming back from Mexico in the airport. I was really mad about this, and I didn't pay the bill. I contributed towards the bill, but we had one person put the bill on their card, and the bill ended up being like $360 or $380 or something, which is way higher than I thought it would have been for a place in Mexico in the airport that was a chain restaurant. And I threw in $200. So I ordered I was in Margaritaville, and I was like, oh, I haven't had a proper frozen margarita at all in Mexico. I've had good classic margaritas, like on the rocks. So I was like, well, in Margaritaville, like I'm probably not expecting a really good classic margarita. I'm going to get a frozen one. So she said, what would you like? I said, I'd like a frozen margarita. And she said, okay, you want a medium, or you want a small or large? And I said, oh, I want the large, baby. I want a big frozen margarita, a nice frosty glass. And she's like, okay, do you want the premium tequila or we have this and this? I was like, look, I just want the basic tequila. I'm getting a frozen margarita. It really doesn't matter to me. So she comes back 5 minutes later with a margarita on the rocks. And I said, oh, I thought I said frozen, because to be honest, I said frozen intentionally 3 or 4 times. Okay. So like I made it very clear to her. So then I watched her. She went back to the bar and she took the drink, got a new pitcher and poured out the liquid and held back the ice with like a spoon or, some bar contraption. And I don't know the name of it. And it only filled like a third of the glass. Okay. And then on top of that, she just put the frozen mix into it. So I was like, so I got a really watery frozen margarita. I was like, oh, well, that's kind of shitty. I understand not wanting to waste it. Like, I'll buy that, whatever. And then she brought it back. I was okay. I was happy. It was a big margarita, freaking Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville. The tab came, and I got charged like an additional, like, I don't know, $30 for premium top shelf tequila. And because my Spanish isn't super strong, and because I was with a group of people, I didn't have the heart and energy or capacity to be like, what the fuck? Like, I asked, you couldn't have fucked this drink up more. You literally gave me everything opposite of what I asked for. That pissed me off. But again, because of the etiquette, I said nothing. I took the L. I had that vacation mentality, the psychology where you're just like, oh, let me go buy a $300 pair of shoes because I'm on vacation. It's like, shoes isn't a vacation item. And if you wouldn't normally spend $300 on shoes, like, you don't need to do it on vacation. But for some reason, like, people just get giddy and just buy a bunch of dumb shit that's expensive. Which is literally whatever that psychological reasoning is. I'm not sure what it is. You could ask your mom, James. I'd love her input on this. That's why airports a lot of airports have these crazy luxury duty-free type stores, is because they know that psychology that the traveler has, where they will literally spend $800 for a purse at Hermes or something like that. Even though a purse isn't a vacation item, they don't need it for vacation. They're just in the mentality of spending money. Any thoughts on that, or are we ready to move on?
Hold on. It's working now?
Yeah, I like how you just muted yourself. So you're just, all right, Justin's on this diatribe about.
Oh, yeah. No, like, I think the psychological underpinning is going to be adjacent to disassociation, where it's like you're not seeing the world that you're in on vacation as the same world that you're in when you're living your normal life. So the normal rules that you would apply to yourself about like frugality, those apply to your normal life. They don't apply to your vacation life. You're a different person when you're on vacation, and this different person doesn't care about money.
Yeah, I would. I'd agree with that. I don't know. It's a weird thing. I think we're gonna run a little over time, but let's wrap up the rest of our list here, and we can get back to that. A couple of things. All right. regional differences. New York City versus the South. I would say in New York City, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Basically, reading the bar. But in New York City, like you have to have your drink order ready. You're going to get very limited interaction. You're there to. It's very transactional. Whereas in the South, people are going to want to have a little bit more of a conversation. And then same thing on the West Coast. You were literally just talking about your interaction with a stranger on the West Coast. If that happened in New York City, you would just assume you wouldn't give that person the time of day. You would just assume they were mentally ill.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say, at least in Ocean Beach, like the line between like people that are doing well and like people that are homeless can be blurry.
Yeah, everybody's got like the hemp bracelets on and what's the word I'm looking for? Dreadlocks. What else are we missing on our list here?
I mean, a lot of the other advice really just goes into like do a little bit of research before you go out. So like the dress code and vibe is like know what kind of a place you're going to and dress accordingly and act accordingly.
Like a hotel bar is going to be the thing is, again, something about people going on vacation. They're like, oh wait, I'm going to be in a different city this week. I need to wear my nicest clothes. I don't. So if you're in a hotel, people generally are dressed more nicely. I dress literally the same. I actually put on my vacation shirt today, but I realize it's not in the shot. Can you see? It says my nice Mexico shirt. I felt very vacation-y. I was going to wear sunglasses actually under the cast, but we didn't start until freaking 9:00 at night. So I just would have actually looked mentally ill. Whereas a dive bar, you can wear whatever you want. If you're at a sports bar wearing some type of sports apparel, probably okay. What else am I kind of missing here?
I mean, you get the theme nights thing, but there's not much there.
So price expectation. How about price expectation?
Well, you know what I would say is, like, in most cases, before you go out, you have a general idea as to what places you're going to, and most places have their menus posted online. Go ahead and take 5 minutes before you go out and look.
Yeah, if the prices aren't on the menu and you're broke,
don't go.
Yeah, exactly. But cocktails generally, I think these days are going to range from like 15 to 20. I've been to some places where they're like well over 20.
It depends. In Charleston, I'd say between like 10 and 15 is where you're going to be.
That's not bad. Yeah,
but it's cheaper down here.
Yeah, I know. And then beers, if you're getting like an exotic, beers should really be like $5 to $10. They should not be much more unless you're getting like something that's super high in alcohol and really fucking good. But if it's not both of those, then it should not be more than $10.
If you're paying like $10 for like a Budweiser draft, go to a different
place. Yeah, no, a Budweiser draft should be like max like $6.
Right.
You might go to a really nice restaurant where they want like $7 or $8, and you just do it because you're there. So actually, I did want to share a funny story that happened to me last night. This has had me laughing all day. So I went out to a broker event and we went on this long tour. We didn't really get to eat anything. We came back from the tour. The only thing left was like cold, like leftover pizza. There was like 8 pizzas and there was like 3 slices left. So I was like, all right, guys, well, we all came out to Brooklyn. So I figured if anything, I'd take you guys out for a couple of drinks afterwards so we can order some food. So that's what we did. I said, hey guys, everybody has a 2-drink limit. You can have beer, you have cocktail, you have wine. I had looked at the menu at this point. I said, so you got 2 drinks on me. I'll order some appetizers for the table. We were there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it's about time to get the bill. And I said to the bartender, I'm ready for the check. So she said, okay. And I said, she brought the check over, and I said, okay, I'll give you $200. I want to put the rest on my card. Now, she admittedly was from North Carolina and had been in New York City for like a week and a half. So I will give her a little bit of a pass in that respect. So she I don't know, she went away or something, came back and gave me the bill. And it was a little over $200, I think. And she came back and the bill was still 200 something. So I said, oh, I thought I told you I'd put the rest on the card. She goes, oh, I thought you said you were going to give me the 200. But she had interpreted, which is literally the words I said. But I said, I'm going to give you 200 and put the rest on the. But I didn't mean like I'm not going to leave a tip on the main bill. I'm just going to put the whole bill on my credit card. I'm going to give you 200 because you've been so nice. She was very nice, but but not for a
Not
80%
100% tip on it.
Yeah, like, uh, but it was a very weird interchange, and of course I was with a group of people, so it was a little embarrassing, probably more so for her, but also for me because then we had to be like publicly discussing exactly what the bill amount was and how much I was leaving for tip. So I was like, I'll tip you on the amount, and I added an extra $20 in cash on top of it just because I had the 20 on me, and
Yeah, but no, that's
it was a really silly interaction, and it was kind of cute and really dumb at the same time.
Let's use next week's topic.
So yeah, I'm down to talk about next week's topic. This one we almost wanted to do today, but we got to do a little more research on this, and it is the United States cities dating tiered list.
Tier list or like grades?
Yeah, like which cities are the best cities for dating, which cities are the worst cities for dating. And the thing is, you and I have spent a decent amount of time in a small handful of cities. So this is why we need to do a little more research because
well, I'll tell you the reason what got me thinking about
because you live in Charleston and you spent time in other cities.
Well, yeah, basically, I was in San Diego and my brother was saying like, dude, you would have such an easier time dating in San Diego. And my response was, I believe it. I see it. Like, and it got me thinking of like, all right, so what makes San Diego so much better than Charleston? And then it made me think like, okay, how do like various cities stack up against each other in terms of what the dating life is like there?
Yeah, and I think we're going to have a pretty exhaustive list with some real good evidence. And if you want to weigh in on which cities you think are the best or the worst, or just let us know how you feel that your city stacks up, you shoot me a DM, shoot me an email, go to SipTalkPodcast.com, fill out our content. I know there's a whole bunch of forums so we get all your contact information. But on that note, I will leave you SipTalkPodcast.com. Visit it, answer our bar trivia question, buy us a drink. You can buy the bar merch. We got a ton of stuff for sale on the website. You get some cool, I don't know, swag, coffee cups or bar shot glasses, things like that. Am I missing anything? All right, Justin DiGiulio for James Boswell saying adios.